For some, which is a source of pride, are those Muslim majority wealthy Arab countries in the Gulf. It is said that Allah has blessed them. The corollary is, and the implicit implication is how they contribute to human civilization due to their investment into elaborate projects and buildings, often with Western know-how, by the way. What is failed to take into account is that this transient wealth is only due to the opportune discovery of oil in modern times. It really has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. In other words, oil has had a bigger impact on the prosperity of certain Arab/Muslim countries rather than the religion itself. The evidence for the previous statement is, if one looks beyond the ostentatious, fatuous, myopic showmanship of modern times, before the oil discovery, the picture on the left shows how desolate, derelict, unkept, and shabby Islam's holiest mosque, the Kaaba in Mecca, looked just 70 years ago in 1954. And below is what it looks like in modern times thanks to oil discovery. On the right, this is what Dubai looked like in 1979 when its first skyscraper was built. Today, it boasts numerous skyscrapers, including the tallest one in the world. If Islam was a factor to their prosperity, as some of the claims made by apologists, then why were the holy sites not invested in? After all, it was Umar who suggested that a place called Station of Abraham within the Kaaba Mosque be made a place of prayer. It says in Sahih al-Bukhari 4483, Allah agreed with Umar about it. Soon after, a Quranic verse was revealed making the pilgrimage to Mecca the fifth pillar of Islam that must be performed by every Muslim once in a lifetime should they have the financial means to do so. With so many Muslims visiting it every year for over 1,000 years, one would have expected it to look better than it did before the oil discovery, even if the country was generally poor. Essentially, during the pre-Islamic times, the purpose of the Hajj pilgrimage was a source of income which enabled merchants to make money. Prices were often raised during the pilgrimage season in order to maximize profit. In reality, nothing has changed since Islam and now, in connection to its pagan origins, as its purpose was a business-making enterprise, as it was an opportunity for merchants to make money. So when the pagans were barred from entering the sanctuary, as mentioned in Quran 9:28, objections were raised by Muslims as to how this will have an impact on their revenue. Allah found a way around. This is explained by Quran commentator Ibn Kathir, who explains the verse thus: when Allah ordered the believers to prohibit the disbelievers from entering or coming near the sacred mosque, on that the people said that this would reduce their profits from trade. Therefore Allah compensated them, and as a source of alternative income for no other reason other than for monetary reasons, Muslims were ordered to fight the people of the book, i.e. the Jews and the Christians, until they paid the jizya tax. The point of all this is, oil was more important than the religion for some of these countries' prosperity, because before the oil discovery, these countries were some of the poorest countries in the world, even with all the pilgrimage rights. In the article with the title The Arabian Gulf Prior to the Oil Era, it explains how poverty-stricken these countries actually were, and with oil soon to dry out, time will only tell how it will impact on its prosperity, as explained by the article by multinational Universal Bank PNB Paribas and also the IMF. Hence why these countries are now preparing for a post-oil economy by engaging in greenwashing and sportswashing. With all that has been said, even with all the oil wealth, these countries often do not flourish when compared to other countries without the same resources, as explained by Forbes, a well-known business, investment and economics outlet. The correlation of oil discovery and wealth is made for Arab Gulf countries as opposed to anything to do with the religion of Islam is because the same countries were poor prior to its discovery less than a century ago. But also as a comparator, those Arab/Muslim countries that do not have any oil still largely live in poverty. Evidence of this is found in the Oxford University's report on poverty. Other research conducted mentioned the persistence of poverty in the Arab world, and others still, such as the United Nations Development Programme, mention how it is the only area of the world where poverty is increasing. When the definition is broadened to Muslim countries as opposed to just Arab countries, poverty is still a common denominator, as explained by this research paper by Professor Jafari et al., which says Muslims are amongst the poorest of the poor in the world. That more than half of the world's 57 Muslim countries are listed as low-income food deficit countries. Illiteracy is high, especially amongst females. Although Muslims constitute around 24% of the world's population, they only produce 10% of the global GDP and exhibit a poor performance on most of the key development indicators. In the study by Dr. Timur Kuran, who studied at Stanford and Princeton and is currently Professor of Economics, Political Science and Islamic Studies at Duke University, makes a direct connection between the religion of Islam and its stagnating effects on economic development and prosperity of Muslim majority countries. Despite espousing the greatness of Islam and how Allah has favoured some countries in the Gulf, the majority of the world's Muslims are poor, so due to economic reasons, they primarily migrate to Western non-Muslim countries. Notice how they do not migrate in the same numbers to wealthy Muslim Arab Gulf countries, and for those who do, they are not afforded the same resources, freedom, rights and dignity when compared to if they migrated to a non-Muslim country. Here is a video and an article explaining the reasons for the poverty and their migration. The links are in the description. In the video with the title Why Are Muslim Countries Poorer, it makes a connection between Islam and its stultifying effects on its countries. Muslim accountant Muhammad Amin says the reason for the poverty is that the religious attitudes are not conducive to economic success, alongside corruption and lack of freedom. The links are in the description. And when Muslims migrate to non-Muslim countries, unemployment, economic strain on the host nation, lack of productivity and creativity is associated with them more than any other religious group. There's a video in the link titled 50 million Muslims in Europe and 80% are living on welfare. This statement was made by an Arab Muslim TV host called Yahya Abu Zakaria, shown here. He also makes other scathing but acerbic bitter truths about Muslims, which he addresses to Islamists and to their ilk. So in conclusion, in modern times, it was only with the opportune and fortuitous discovery of resources such as oil, which has had a bigger impact on the prosperity of certain Arab countries. Prior to the oil discovery, the same countries were amongst the world's poor, although some countries, such as Saudi Arabia, for centuries have had religious pilgrimage to rely on for its economic income. Other than a few select countries, most of the Arab world today is relatively poor. Muslim countries, which also includes Arab countries, are some of the poorest in the world. Research has found that the religion of Islam is culpable for stagnating economic growth and contributing to poverty. This in turn impacts on the behavior of Muslims, as evident whenever they migrate to other countries. With this as a backdrop, in the next video, it will be shown how before Islam, the pre-Islamic Arabs were a people who were known as wealthy, advanced and civilized. They were described as honest and prosperous by ancient Greeks and Romans. This challenges the common untrue narrative spun by Muslims that Islam civilized Arabs and led them to prosperity.